Hi everyone. So in this video, let's write some Svelte JS code and we will see how it is running and how it is getting compiled. Before that, I wanted to just talk about this Svelte JS playground. This is a playground where you can actually see how things are getting compiled and what is the output compiled code we are generating. I will just zoom it a little bit. You can also look into this. So this is our component app.svelte, which is nothing. Okay, we have the script tag and we have simple HTML. Okay, we expose some variable name and I'm able to print that variable name here. This simplest code, you can see what output it is generating. This is the output JavaScript we are getting. Okay, this is the compiled code and that is compiled code is happy to be processed by the browser. This is the CSS output and this is the final result we are getting. We can also pass the scoped CSS, and if we talk about these are the three different examples: hello world, scoped CSS, how it is able to scope the CSS, and then the example of the reactivity, how it is going to react whenever you clicked onto this button, how fast the change detection is happening, because it's not using any kind of a virtual DOM to apply and re-render, because there is no concept of re-rendering, right? Then what is the reactive nature, how it is becoming so much reactive that whenever you change, then what is happening in the background, that is asking this component to publish the new value of the count. Okay, so that all those things we are going to look into, but you can play with this Svelte JS, like what is the component. This is a simple component can contain only simple HTML also. We don't need to put a JavaScript here. This will also result you to simple hello, because we don't have a name here. Hello world. Scoped CSS, because the component can contain a JavaScript, HTML and the styles. These are the scoped styles. Here I just put the styles for the p tag and that is getting applied. Okay, scoped styles means this particular style has been applied to this component only, not outside this. You can see it is not affecting this particular component. Okay, similarly the simple example on reactivity, the count was 0. When I click on to this is a simple Svelte syntax which we need to learn. It is just calling the handle click and it is the count is increased by 1. Then how this count is getting reflected onto this. So there are you can say, if you look into the output code, we will see a lot of things. Handle invalidate, you will see something like this. So what it is doing is, whenever you click onto this button handle click, it is invalidating the value of the count which was already there, and it is going to publish the new value of the count instance. So if I have the new value of the count and invalidated the previous one, I should be able to show the updated value onto the UI. Okay, and this is how this HTML is getting compiled. This is the button, these are the different text, there is a space and then there is a text, and this is how they, in this particular way, they are getting appended. The button on the T0, T1, T2, T3, because there is only one button we have. Okay, and this is the simplest compiled output. If we look for the hello world, what the JS out contains, this is just containing the, this is the HTML content h1 and the text content for the h1. This is it, and this is the component. Okay, we can look into more examples. Actually in the documents they are providing all different examples, how the form works, how you can integrate with the API, how the parent-child component really works in the Svelte JS. Okay, so on the same line, let's talk about this example. And I was talking about this is fast. Let's see how it is working. npm run start. You might have seen this command on different framework. Angular CLI, npm run start command is there. In the create React app also there is npm run start, and you can see this is ultra fast, right? Npm run start, and it has published. When I do npm run build, it is building the component. Right now we don't have many, right? It has compiled and build.js is the output. So when I do npm run start, we should be able to see the output on 8000 port, and this is the output, hello world. right? This is the same vanilla JavaScript it is publishing to the browser, and we should be able to see that on the browser. Okay, so you can see how fast this is. Now we'll talk about app.svelte and we will write some code here. What I will do is I will remove whatever is code is there. So we have the scoped styles and we have this HTML, and this is a simple JavaScript. So scoped style we don't need to work on. I will zoom this a little bit. So here we have the variables like export let name. Similarly, we can actually create some another variable. Let's say export let salary. You can initialize these variables, or we are exporting it because we are telling the Svelte JS either you are going to get this variable from the parent component or you are going to get this value from this variable itself. Okay, if you look into the parent component, here we are passing the name. Okay, that means if you just write export let name, you are just telling this app.svelte component, okay, I'm getting the name from the parent component. You can also override and initialize it with something else. Let's say okay, so now let's create a simple button and try to increase the salary. So button component is the same. You can just create a button, simple HTML JavaScript. Now I'm able to increase the salary, right? It is generating these outputs, bundle.js, bundle.css, and the static artifacts favicon. So what is actually happening here when you click onto the button? It is invalidating the salary value. Whenever you are clicking onto that we can see in the output build also. So inside build.js, if you are able to render the code, see the code like how things are happening. Otherwise you will just create npm run build and see what is happening there. Here it is. This is really important code. So we are getting the name from the props. Okay, this salary is the props which I have defined in the component itself, and name is something as a props I'm receiving from the app component. And whenever you are doing a handle click, I'm invalidating the value of salary because I'm increasing that, and these are the two writable props which I'm writing to the component, right? Because the name and salary, I'm setting those values, and whenever we are invalidating, we are actually updating and capturing the new value. I mean, we need to see how internally it is working whenever there is a change, how the Svelte component is able to capture the new updated value onto the component itself. So I mean, the context is getting updated and this value is getting invalidated whenever I'm clicking onto the button. This is what I can see in the compiled code. Handle click, invalidate the salary value and increase and reflect the new value of salary. Okay, this props, this is the internal props, or this is the props which we are receiving from the parent component. This is what it is showing. And let's see the reactivity in with some other examples also, because this compiled code won't tell us more, because this is all internal things which is happening at the compiler stage. So this is our first basic example which we have covered. Now what we will do is, let's talk about the course outline, like what all things we are going to cover. Obviously we are going to talk about the core syntax, the basic syntax, because this on click is not same as the JavaScript on click. We have to follow some syntax. This looks JavaScript to me, but sometimes we are writing some syntax. We have the array, we have the array objects, how to render the array objects onto the component in the HTML. So that has a separate syntax. How we can pass the data, how we can pass the props, that is a different syntax. So core syntax. Then we will talk about conditional and loops. We'll talk about some basic projects. We'll talk about, okay, how we are going to work with the forms and the components, like the data binding in the forms, how to capture the values, and the important part is how to work with the stores. And then the interaction of the component with HTTP calls, because there will be a backend, we are going to interact with them, and parent child component, and then routing and server side rendering. Those are the other important aspects we are going to cover. So let's get started. I will just cover some course outline and then we'll start learning the core basic syntax of Svelte JS.